people will join us. Okay, so hi everyone, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. We had a little summer break, and I'm so happy to be here again, and we have a very special guest, and you will figure out why I'm saying that. So how we build this Toronto is a webinar series we started, Lirat Kligman and I started, to get a chance to ask the founders of the most successful real estate companies in our industry to get an insight on how they build their business and why, and what are the challenges and lessons learned they would like to share with us. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Nama Blonder. I'm an architect and urban planner with Smart Density. My co-host and friend is Lirat Kligman, a co-founder of the Yorkville team, a residential and commercial sales team in Toronto. And Lirat, please introduce our guest today.
Hello, so it's my pleasure to introduce Sharon Golberg. He's the founder and principal of the Dash Group of Companies. It's a development company. They recently completed a gorgeous building called Avenue 151 in Yorkville. Also the founder of Dash Property Management, a Toronto rental property management leader with over $500 million of assets under management, providing white glove service to investors from over 30 countries around the world and assisting top condo developers in the city during the occupancy stages. And Sharon is also the co-founder of Dash Capital, a condo investors financing platform. Sharon graduated with an honors in accounting at York University and spent the last few months exploring Ontario during this wonderful COVID period with his wife and 3 kids. So Sharon, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you with us. So why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about your background, how you got started. You know, you weren't originally from Toronto in Canada. What was your journey?
Well, thanks for the introduction. I really appreciate it. I think it's a great opportunity for, to connect with the crowd and get a bit more behind the scene about how we get to the points that we get in terms of our careers. I moved to Toronto about 19 years ago, followed back then my girlfriend, today my wife. I had no intentions to go anywhere outside of Israel. And, very fast I found out myself in Toronto. After my 3 years of military service and a year at university in Israel. I came here basically to pursue my accounting degree. And the plan was to really 3-4 years to spend in Toronto and move back and just have this kind of an adventure. Little did I knew that this adventure is going to last 19 years. The plan was really to, settle here for a short period of time. And as we made it to Toronto, I started to get calls from friends of family friends who wanted to invest in condos in Toronto. And their philosophy was back then that real estate in Toronto was really affordable and the Canadian dollar was cheap compared to the Israeli currency. And they asked me to help them. And I said, you know what, I'm working and I'm going to school and real estate is not really my thing. I don't know much about real estate and maybe I'm not the right guy for the task. So, they've been very persistent. And I started to kind of go in between sales offices, different developers, to see how this business works. In about a year and a half, I ended up doing 200 deals. And those clients, continued to contact with me and started to ask me for help with choosing their color selections for their units, and then help them with pre-delivery inspections, and things that were really outside of my scope. And at that point in time, when I was more focusing on my internship and pursuing my CPA, I thought that there is an opportunity here because I couldn't find any one-stop shop company that can really cater towards those investors. I needed to pull real estate agents, insurance brokers, mortgage brokers, and just get the whole package together just for them to be able to own their own property remotely. So that's how I founded Dash Property Management. And really with a focus of having the client easy ownership remotely. My focus back then was 100% foreigners. Today we grew up to about 50% of our clients are Torontonians who realizing that being a landlord is a much bigger task than simply just placing a tenant in the property and collecting rent. when we got to this, a nice number of units, doors that we managed, same clients turned back to me and said, you know what, we're having a blast with few units, but we want something a bit more exciting. And I said, what do you have in mind? And they asked me to go and buy apartment buildings. Well, I was in my early 20s. When I went to meet with those commercial agents, no one wanted to work with me because they said, what is your apartment acquisition experience to date? And I said, none, but we can do a few deals and then we can take it from there. And it was really hard to get the attention of the big brokers. Later I ended up doing 2 apartment deals in one shot. And where I thought, that's great, that's kind of the pinnacle of my real estate career. We turned up this 20% vacancy building to 0% vacancy and bumped up the rents. And the same clients turned again to me and said, well, great, we really like the apartments, but we also noticed that there is some excess land in between the buildings. And I go, okay, well, what do you have in mind? Do you want me to build a playground? And they go, no, why don't you go for development? I said, well, listen, I don't really know development. And I said, don't worry, you figured out the condos, you figured out the apartment acquisition, you'll figure out the development. And here I am, starting a whole kind of path in my career, and that's how I formed Dash Developments. I did the whole rezoning process, which was very complicated in that regards. And when I finished that, I kind of realized that that's it's an amazing path, and it was linking back to my passion to do different things in a unique way. And as I finished the rezoning for that apartment buildings, there was an opportunity for me to pick up the site in Yorkville. And up until that point, I was sitting on different boards, condo boards, helping different developers that I did pre-sales for to go through the occupancy phase, and also to help them with the first year technical audit. So I gained experience in the back end and on the marketing side, and certainly managing so many doors for investors. And I felt very rounded in terms of my experience and my set of skills. And it was, as I was trying to bring different land deals to developers, the feeling was, you'll be able to sit in the boardroom among 20 other people, and whatever you pick up, it's great, but we're not a university. We will not walk you through the process. And I really, my curiosity and my passion to understand this business was more than just kind of bringing land to the deal. And I said, you know what, I'm just gonna go full in, and I'll try it myself, right? So I think that was probably a big career changing moment for me, to be committed in that regards, and to be able to tie the different life experiences and business experience that I gained over the years before to build out Avenue. And even there, I mean, we tried to redefine different things the way that business has been done in Toronto. We did almost a fully customizable unit play throughout the building. And this is one thing that everyone is trying to shy away from. And understandably, it's very complex. But my mindset was that if you can customize a $20,000 car, how come you're not able to customize $1 million unit? Right? So we had to group the construction team together. We had to get our consultants in and explain them our vision prior to tendering, so they can understand the complexities and the level of service we're expecting to get in this building. And I think this is kind of a philosophy that I've been trying to carry forward throughout the different aspects of how we do business as a group. My colleagues, my partners, we always wanted to get this DNA that it's not enough to open a store and put an open sign. We wanted to do something more meaningful, bring more add value to the table.
I love that. I love that philosophy. It's I think it's so valuable to have an experience, even having grown up in a place that's outside of Toronto, to be able to come in and bring new ideas and a fresh perspective on things. So to that point, I think 8 or 9 times out of 10 successful entrepreneurs in Toronto tend to come from Toronto or from Canada. For you, it was a very different story, where you came in from out of place. You didn't have that local support network, that local set of mentors. What was that experience like for you, coming in and not having that established network?
Yeah, I think everywhere starting, you know, a new business or going into a new niche is always difficult. I mean, you can just imagine how much more difficult is it to come straight to a new city with a new language, not having family, not having friends, and you have two choices. You can just drag behind and walk your way through it at your own pace. And I kind of quickly realized that I have to put some goals for myself. So, I mean, I remember one of the first things that I established, I said, every week I have to meet with 4 new people that I never met before. How would I reach that? I don't know, but I'll start door knocking if needs to. So I remember starting to kind of talk with my office neighbors and trying to see who they are, explore, explaining a bit about what Dash does and what is it we're looking for. And from there, I kind of hope to open more doors. You know, and I think my journey is just full with amazing people that I met along the way, young and old, and from different backgrounds of life. But I think there is a very common denominator for the people that I met over the years, that when they recognize potential, when they recognize that there is an individual on the other side that is similarly or even more passionate about doing things right, they will embrace you. And you know, I get lucky to know those people.
So we talked, so for those of you who wonder why Sharon and I have the same accent, is that we're both from Israel, and I actually had a chance to have coffee with Sharon and ask him all these questions. So this webinar is almost take 2 for me. But Sharon, I have so many questions. So first of all, you're saying you got lucky, and we already talked about it. What does it mean? I mean, do you really think you got lucky? Do you really believe in luck? You said those people believed in you, and it sounded like you almost didn't believe in yourself. So can you go back to those days and take us through the process of being in this intersection when you need to make a decision? You can pick whatever intersection you want and share a story, but and then, okay, I'll wait with my other question. So let's start here.
I don't think the luck, I didn't mean luck in the sense that things turned out to be great because there was kind of a unicorn out there to kind of pass the results in the right way for me. But I think, first of all, I worked 26 hours a day, 8 days of the week, probably 400 days a year. And I think that's when people recognize, right? And people know that, you know, I'm always going to go, I will walk the extra mile for them. And you know, it's inherited in our group DNA. It goes from every member of our organization. And when I met luck, I mean, when I met those people who had enough experience in this field and managed to kind of show me a bit of the light at the end of the tunnel, I kind of, you know, they recognize the fact that if they will give me the milestones, I'll be able to execute. You know, and I remember one of my very first partners, I was in my 20s, he was in his 70s, he already done so much in real estate. And we met first time and then the second time, and on the third meeting he goes, I have to tell you a story. He immigrated to Toronto from Israel in the 60s. And he said, in Israel, to be part of the $1 Million Club, you have to show that you have $1 million in your checking account. In Toronto, to be part of this club, you just have to show that you're worth it. And I think it was a great moral for me, in the sense that he had recognized that, you know, I'm not just here to spend this time, and you know, with his support, I can turn something to something bigger. And those are kind of the experiences that I have over the years. I mean, my very first encounterment as I started to do marketing was an amazing salesperson from one of the larger developers in the city that used to manage the sales. And I used to work with her all the APSs for investors. Mind you, I didn't know anything about real estate as I started. And I think 4 or 5 days of the week when I finished school and work, I used to go down to her sales office at 6 o'clock at night when she finished her regular hours. And, you know, I started with a bunch of questions, and she started with a bunch of, you know, this is how it works, and this is how the real estate works. And it was, you know, she was really my first and only mentor in that regards, and she was the spark that really got me going in terms of setting up the different real estate avenues.
Can you share with us a moment when you messed things up, and but choose a good one, choose a good story when you screw things up and how you got out of it?
I don't know. You know what? I think it's a tough one. I have to tell you that I'm very demanding from myself. So it's really hard for me to get to a point that I really screw up. There are so many safety valves before I get to a point that I go, okay, I have to change everything. You know, I don't think I have a moment, you know, that is a complete fiasco to tell you, but you know, it always happens. If you don't err in business, I mean, we always have errors and mistakes and whatnot. I think for me, the biggest challenge is, you know, to make sure that when we make errors, we step up to it and we fix it, and we learn not to repeat the same mistakes. But thanks God, I mean, seriously, you know, I haven't done anything big to go back and try and change it.
Okay, so let's look at the flip side then. So was there a sort of an aha moment where you realized, wow, I made it? Like a moment where you know, sat back and sort of thinking, wow, I'm successful? Or has that not happened? Or, you know, how do you evaluate success?
Yeah, I think each business has its own way, its own moments to understand when you got to a point that, you know, you're delivering what you thought in your vision you're going to be able to bring to the table. On the management side, you know, when clients are starting off with 1 unit and they end up with 5 units, and the next thing they say, you know, you made our life so much easier, or, you know, our life savings is grew so much because of your advice and investment strategies. That's, to me, on the management side, you know, that's a big turnaround point. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it's easier for everyone to understand what we're doing when you say that it's a rental management play. But we're really, you know, wealth managers in a real estate thing. People come to us from all over the world, and they give us kind of a budget and their targets, and they want us to help them out with, from acquisition to disposition, everything in the middle, right? We're doing their taxes, we're doing their insurance, financing, and whatnot. So I think when we get to a point that clients feel so comfortable, and the next email is, hey, you know, I have an excess cash, can you do something for me? That's definitely a point where we say, you know what, we know we're delivering an amazing value. On the development side, you know, I have some funny stories, but when I picked up Yorkville, for instance, I called the listing brokerage and I said, you know what, I'm licensed, but I'd rather you double in the deal. Can you represent me? And the vendor back then was ESSO. And, you know, we started working on the deal. We signed up the deal, and midway through the transaction, the broker calls me and he goes, Sharon, I got a call from a big developer in the city who had the site prior to you under contract, and they dropped it. And they said that they don't think you have the funds to close the deal. So at that point in time, I realized that probably someone was really upset that I managed to pick up the site, and it was a good opportunity for them. And then later on, as we end up at the OMB, one of my consultants, you know, came over and said, hey, listen, you know, if you're willing to walk away, here's a number that another developer is willing to pay you just to flip the deal over to them. So I realized that, you know, I mean, monetary side is great. I mean, we all go to work at the end of the day to make something, but I wanted to do something more meaningful. For me, it's just the goal of putting a building, impacting the skyline, being able to add to our beautiful city. And I think those are the moments that you realize that you've done something right, and someone else couldn't do it in the same fashion that you're doing it, and they're trying to kind of cut you out. Yeah, you know, part of that, clearly, when a building is coming up and you see the machinery and you see the floors going up on the development side, it's an exciting moment. You know, you get calls from all over the city, people who drive up and down the streets that you're building on, and, you know, they just reconnect with you. So those are definitely defining moments.
Oh, you celebrated your 40th birthday this year, so congratulations. And you accomplished all of that. Sorry?
But it should have been a secret.
No, I told you I told you I'm gonna say that. Unless you ask me not to say, but that's too late for that. And you accomplished all that under the age of 40, which is remarkable. It's really unheard of. What advice could you give to, our audience, our young professionals, probably in their mid-30s? What, looking back, you said you've been doing it for 19 years, so you started at a very young age. But looking back, what advice you would like to pass on?
I think any type of business that I'm trying to go through, I'm always trying to see if there is room to do better. I can tell you that over the last few years, when working with foreign investors or non-resident clients, there has been this ongoing challenge to get financing on condo developments on the closing date. And it's been a very frustrating process working with the banks in that regards. And I sat down with a couple of my colleagues, and we said, can we do better? Can we improve the process? Can we add more transparency, bring more technology into this world? Because at the end of the day, when you go, and I don't want to go into kind of professional terms, the risk reward is a much better play for non-residents than for the regular investors that live in Toronto in terms of the banks. And that's how we came up with the capital, with the lending platform. But it goes across the board with the management. We put the client in the center, and we're trying to think how we can create more value, how we can make the transaction more friendly, more transparent, and redefine the way that we've been doing business here. I mean, Toronto has been doing so well over the last 20 years, but that doesn't mean that there is no room for improvement.
So I want to stop you right there. When you say, when there's a new idea you found this loophole where you can improve something, what's next?
We brainstorm in terms of what's the right way to deliver. I mean, so you have, yes, the idea is one thing, right? Then you have to go into planning phase, but execution is key. And I think at that point in time, I'm just searching for the right people, probably the most promising people in the industry for that matter, whether it's going to be legal, accounting, you name it. And we're able to sit down with them and just try to figure out what is the right play, how we do that. And when we have the full package, the whole image in front of us, I think the next step, and this is what we realized over the last few years, execution has to be a combo of technology and human factor. And so far it's been very heavy on the human side, but technology, this is probably the right way for us to go. And when you compare the way business is being conducted in our industry, at least in Toronto, versus other parts in the world, there is a big step forward that we can create here. So I think for me, if I were to start again, I would definitely say that, passion to succeed is a big thing. You have to be curious. You have to know the details. Don't just take things as a Bible for granted. You have to always challenge it. I can't tell you how many clients are not aware, or condo purchasers, that they're entitled to get an HST rebate on their property, which is $30,000. They're walking away without even knowing that it's possible. How many people sold their properties and don't even know that they can get a capital gains refund? They just think that whatever they paid on the sale, it is what it is. And we're always trying to improve that bottom line for the clients, whether through the development phase, whether through doing the asset management or other things that we're engaged in.
So looking back at the past 19 years, you've obviously had a really interesting journey. Is there anything that you would have done differently in hindsight? And to, I mean, obviously you're very successful, but anything that stands out for you?
As I mentioned at the beginning, when I came here, my mission was really to last those 3-4 years. So when I started Dash Property Management, I didn't want to take too much business on my shoulder, because I said, it's going to be hard for me to get rid of the business when I'm going back to Israel, and my focus was really doing my accounting career. So I kind of, I shied away from really bursting out and giving a full push for my potential to be able to grow the company. And I think the moral from that experience for me was that whatever you do, just push the pedal all the way to the floor. Just do your very best. You'll figure out later how things are going to be planned out. But if you're trying to hold back yourself, you're shutting yourself from different opportunities that might impact other decisions that you'll be taking. I think retroactively, it's obviously much easier to leave a more successful business behind than a smaller one. But that's, to me, was, I didn't see that it's going to be a 19-year journey and still going. And that would really kind of held me back.
And what about...
Sorry, go ahead, Tara.
I'll do one more. What about just everything you've learned over these past 19 years? What a key wisdom or key learning that you'd wish to pass on to, let's say, the younger you 19 years ago, or to emerging young leaders that want to start up their own businesses?
I think there is big success by various companies in our industry, and those brands are very dominant. But people have to understand that at the end of the day, people do business with people. Company does not do business with a company. Certainly not in real estate. It is such a personal industry. And, I will tell, anyone else that goes into this industry to not be shy, just be very on top of what your plan is, write out your plan, stick to it. There's certainly going to be some setbacks. There's going to be many no's, but you just focus on the yes, and whatever you take, just go from one place to another, and know how to tie your assets as an individual. Focus on that, and whatever you're weak in, or you don't think that's your strength, try to really rebuild it, or just get help from someone who's an expert in that field.
So, Sharon, tell us about how you started. Tell us about the story you told me with the lockers.
It's a very funny situation, because I think when you always started trying to practice what you preach for, I realized that back then, in the days when I started, that I didn't have enough equity to actually go and buy real estate or become a developer overnight, obviously. And just by crunching numbers, I realized that the only solid investment that I could do at the beginning was really to buy a storage locker in a condo that I used to live in. And back then, lockers didn't have property tax or maintenance fee assigned to that. And so I ended up buying a $1,500 locker and renting it out for $50 a month. Well, that created right there and then about 40% return on the investment, which was crazy in any comparison. But clearly the numbers are very small. Making $600 a year will not change your life. And then as I was monitoring that, I kind of started to buy parking spots within the same building for way less than market, and renting it out again. But I think this was just got me an idea that, you have to start somewhere. So for me, that was the starting point. I learned a lot out of that. The market obviously evolved and changed. Lockers and parkings have their own maintenance fee and parking and property taxes associated. So it's not probably the best investment I would recommend you doing, but it certainly was a good starting point for me.
That's a great story. I love it. Now, fast forward 19 years into the future. Now you run 3 companies, Dash Property Management, Dash Developments, and Dash Capital. How do you identify challenges in the market and how you react? And especially now with Dash Capital. Can you tell us more about that?
I'm very involved in the condominium business in Toronto. So at different aspects, as I mentioned, I've been, helping people do the acquisitions, manage the properties, day-to-day operation. I've been working with many leading developers in the city, and I kind of learned over the years different, stress points and things that I could potentially do a bit better. At least I hope so. And part of the challenges that I saw over the years is one, that people didn't have a one-stop solution for their real estate investments. People worked really hard to save money, but at the end of the day, they worked even harder to actually maintain those investments. So that's how the management side came up. On the condo side, I really thought that we can bring a different niche, a different approach, a more customizable development project, certainly in Yorkville, that it calls for a certain crowd. And it kind of worked out very well for us. And over the last few years, my partners and I, we realized that there is a really credit crunch in terms of getting mortgages for condo investors in the city. One is to get a proper financing on your first mortgage, but if you are looking to refinance, most of the banks would just not allow you to refinance for regulatory reasons, and that really creates a problem. That if you realize a very nice appreciation to your property, now you cannot do an equity takeout. So we had formed up Dash Capital, my partners and I, just in order to be able to satisfy those great opportunities that investors have, but they can't really get the proper financing. So I think in that regards, this is an example that there are different challenges out there. And by really, spinning our wheels and getting all the experience and the feedbacks we get from thousands of clients that we have currently, we managed to come up with a tailor-made solution and help them to really kind of untie those challenges.
Can you tell us more on how is it to run 3 companies? Do you get scared to spread yourself too thin? What advice can you give? And also, if you can tell us about this point when you said, okay, now it's the time for the next company.
It's a great question. I think at any point in time, you kind of, evaluating how much more you can carry right on your own shoulders. And I think certainly it takes a big toll in terms of my time and my focus. And if I wouldn't enjoy it, that probably would be a bigger challenge. So I certainly like everything that I do. And it's kind of, which kid do you prefer better? The first one, the second one, the third one. So I really like all of them. And I'm very much involved in anything that I do. It's, I think the key is really to get, talented, hard workers, smart people around you. And I got lucky to be surrounded with the right crowd. And, different ventures that I do, I put myself in different teams. And I'm trying to focus there wherever I can bring a meaningful add value. I'll do my part, and hopefully my partners can complement me with the rest of the things that I don't have.
That's a great lesson. Well, Sharon, anything else you would like to add before we finish this webinar?
I keep on saying you have to work hard. Don't think about failure, because, if you don't try, you never make it. Keep being really, professional in what you do and explore as much as you can. And even if you don't make it on the first, second shot, the learning process, the experience you gain through this will just make you a much more versed and knowledgeable player.
It's only a failure if you don't learn from it. Anyway, Sharon, thank you. Okay, so I'll ask the last question that we ask all our guests. If you would like to recommend a book that inspired you, your business, your leadership, what would that book be?
Many talks were going about for this crisis. So I luckily can tell you that I'm just in my early 40s, so I don't feel any crisis that I'm going through. However, a good friend of mine actually recommended me a book that is called No Grown-Ups. And it's about an American girl that moved to Paris. And she kind of documented that over the years, people started to call her from Madam to Mademoiselle, and she kind of felt that overnight she grew up and she became older, and people acknowledge her differently. And the book first of all, it's a very funny book, and it talks about different challenges, physical but also mental, that we're going through as we grow older. But for me, the moral out of this book was more about knowing that there is no other grown-ups around you that you can look up and ask for an advice and rely on. You're the grown-up, and you have to come up with the solutions, and you have to show leadership and show what's the right thing to do. And I think over the last 19 years of my career, there was nowhere a grown-up for me to look up. I always needed to kind of brainstorm and reinvent myself and come up with the solutions. I think that's part of what made Dash's growth so aggressive and so rapid, by not being fostered by any other organization, other image. And we kind of work it through as we needed, as troubles or any solutions or opportunities came along.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. That sounds like a really cool book. Should all look out for that. So on behalf of Nama and I, Sharon, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciated the chat with you. And thanks for sharing your unique journey with us. So everyone out there, thanks again for joining, and want to let you know about our next session. So on Thursday, July 27th at 11 a.m., we've got Monica Jarozanik, the co-founder of Ratio City. So that'll be a pretty interesting discussion. Hope you join us then. And thanks again for joining, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.